Are the Miami Hurricanes about to punch their ticket to Charlotte, or will the Syracuse Orange play spoiler?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making this epic Locked On crossover your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Whether you're listening to and watching us on Locked On Canes, I am Alex Donno on Locked On Canes, or on Locked On Syracuse, he is Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse. Thank you so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We got a matchup, Jackson, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday in the Dome. Miami just needs to win to get into the ACC Championship game, but what an opportunity for Syracuse to play spoiler. And Jackson, do you expect the Orange to play like a team that's got nothing to lose?
I absolutely do. This is what I said on the ACC squad episode, okay? This is the game for Syracuse. This is it. This is your time to be like, hey, you know what? It's 4th and 2 in our own territory. Let's go for it. It's the final game of the regular season. You got nothing to lose. There's nothing tangible at play here. Miami, they got everything to lose. They got everything on the line. So yeah, this is your time to play loose. Go have fun, because you know what? Yes, there is a bowl game that's coming up, but this is the last time we're ever going to see this squad the way this squad is. So why not go out and have some fun? Be loose and just play to win. That's all I ask. Play to win the game.
Yeah, Miami's going to have to be ready for trick plays. They're going to have to be ready, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
4th and 2 in Syracuse's territory. Be
Go
ready
for
for
it.
anything. Yeah, on this crossover, we're going to give you our predictions. Syracuse versus Miami. We're going to talk about key matchups to watch, and we're going to talk about storylines. Now, just to give the rebuttal on what you said, Jackson, about playing with nothing to lose, obviously on the Miami side, Mario Cristobal's team cannot and will not play that way. Miami's going to have to be more methodical. The emphasis for the Hurricanes and for Cam Ward, and something that he did pretty well against Wake Forest last week, was take what the defense gives to you. Now, obviously, if there is a situation where Miami's playing from behind, he might have to try to put that Superman cape on. But I think Ward is going to be throwing the underneath stuff if Syracuse is playing with 2 high safeties, trying to keep Miami in the umbrella. Hurricanes are going to try to get that running game going. And obviously, for both teams, they're going to want to try to keep the turnovers down. And that's something we'll get into as well. But looking at things, Jackson, from the Syracuse side, and it's been a splendid season so far at 8-3. What are the big storylines for the Orange heading into this game?
So the big one is that, hey, we're finally good again. Welcome back to college football relevance. It's pretty cool. And this is the game where you can kind of cement yourself, because I feel like a lot of people, Syracuse fans know. We know, and a lot of Miami fans, while I think Miami fans expect that their team is going to win, they understand that this is not the same Syracuse team from the last few seasons. Okay? Because it sounds so simple, Donno. All you got to do is beat Syracuse and you're in the ACC title game. Sounds so easy, right? Not this time. They got a first-year head coach in Fran Brown who has completely revamped the program in 1 year. They got a quarterback who just so happens to be the only quarterback in the country who has more passing yards than Cam Ward. Not saying he's better than Cam Ward. Hurricanes fans, don't come at me right now. I'm just pointing out that he does have more passing yards. He's the one guy that has it, okay? They got multiple wide receivers that can beat you. They got an all-conference running back. They got an all-conference tight end. Defense, little bit suspect, but the main storyline for this team is this is your moment. I was sincerely hoping that Syracuse would also be 10-1 as well. And while that was maybe a little bit unrealistic, where they are right now at 8-3 is realistic. And this is your chance to say, hey, college football, we have arrived. Syracuse is the new place you got to be.
You know, for Miami, I'll start with the macro, and the big picture is, like you said, quote unquote, all they have to do is beat Syracuse. I know that is a tall task.
That's all they have to do.
That's all they have to do, right? But that's the story heading in, is if Miami is 10.5-point favorites, if they take care of business, so to speak, they're in the ACC Championship game December 7th against SMU, who's already punched their ticket. If Miami loses, they're out of the ACC Championship game and Clemson gets in. It's that simple. This is a must-win game for Miami. Now, on the micro, Jackson, the storyline for the Hurricanes, of course, they've been really looking for consistency, especially on the defensive side of the football. And to be consistent, it would require playing well on that side of the football, I would say, for at least 2 consecutive games. So can they follow up what was a very good defensive performance after a rocky first possession against Wake Forest last week? They needed a little time to adapt against the slow mesh, and then eventually Miami found their groove, and 9 straight Wake Forest possessions ended in 0 points. Miami had a pick 6 in the game, so the defense played very well against Wake Forest. This is a different animal, though, when you talk about one of the top passing offenses in the entire country going up against Syracuse. So can Miami, with players like Reuben, Bain, and Alston, who's expected to return this week from a long injury layoff, Simeon Barrow Jr., can they continue the pass rush, a pass rush that was able to produce 5 sacks against the Demon Deacons last week? Miami averages 3 sacks per game, which is, I think, top 15 in the country so far when it comes to producing sacks on opponents. So I think that's going to be big for this week. And then also, Kyle McCord is going to have time on certain downs, I'm sure, to throw the football. Can Miami's defensive backfield hold up? OJ Frederick, Miami's true freshman, he's been the most consistent guy back there. He's actually been the sensation this year. A lot of the upperclassmen have not done so well. I'm looking at Damari Brown, who was, considered to be one of Miami's top corners preseason, hasn't played since the opening game against Florida. He is probable to return this week. I expect to see him in the nickel, assuming he does play. So how much rust is he going to have after, essentially almost 3 months off from playing the game of football? So Miami's defense, to me, Jackson, is the big storyline in this one. Obviously, the offense has been Miami's most consistent unit. They've been the bread and butter. We expect them one way or another to play well, but how many points is Miami's D going to give up? That's the burning question heading into this one.
So here's the thing with Kyle McCord, and I'm going to kind of answer the question for you, okay?
Yeah.
The number one thing that gets him in trouble is pressure. But hey, that's like the most evergreen thing in the world on quarterbacks, right? If you get pressure on them, you can make even the best in the world. You can make a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen look human all of a sudden if you get pressure on them and you're right in their face. And we saw that against Pitt. The other thing that gets Kyle McCord in trouble, though, and it's not as evergreen, is he's going to have 1 or 2 throws a game where you're left scratching your head. You're like, what were you thinking? What was that decision? Right? And I'm a huge Kyle McCord fan. Syracuse fans, we love Kyle McCord. But we also have to acknowledge his flaws. And he'll have 1 or 2 of those moments where you're sitting there on the couch, where you're sitting there in the stadium, and you're like, what was that? There's 4 guys there. What? It's not inaccuracy. It's decision-making at times. And so the real thing with Miami's defense is this. When he has that moment, you got to take advantage because it's not going to happen very often. And we have seen so far this season for Syracuse what happens when you do take advantage of it and when you don't take advantage of it. Against UNLV, they had multiple chances to pick off Kyle McCord and end that game where UNLV wins. And if UNLV wins that game, their playoff outlook probably looks a little bit different than it does right now. But they lost because their linebacker drops a game-winning interception. The next play, Syracuse ties the game, and then they win in overtime. And then what happened against Pitt? A couple poor decisions. Pitt takes them back to the house. Game was over. That's the key for Miami. So I think Syracuse is going to get their points. I do. It's just when Kyle McCord has that moment where he makes a poor decision, is Miami there to actually be able to take advantage of it and pick him off?
Well, when we come back, I'll give you a key for Syracuse. Not, Fran Brown, I hope you're not taking notes if you're listening to this or watching this, but you guys want to keep it locked right here. We're going to talk about key matchups when we come back because Miami Hurricanes in a must-win situation taking on Syracuse, 3:30 p.m. in the Dome on Saturday. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this Locked On crossover. Guys, there's so many reasons why GameTime, it is the only ticket app that Jackson, Holzer, and I use because we're getting the best deals right up until kickoff, tip-off, first pitch. The prices actually get lower on the GameTime app the closer you get to the event, which is incredible. There's so many features, including a new feature on the GameTime app called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because GameTime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Guys, some of the other features that I love, the all-in pricing feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. I hate when they slap you with those surprise fees. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. They've got the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you so much for making this Locked On crossover your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure for your next listen, you check out our guy Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football. He does a great job taking you around all the big games, all the big storylines. It's rivalry week. You've got playoff positions that could be decided this week, conference championship spots. So make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Make sure you check out our shows. I host Locked On Canes. Jackson hosts Locked On Syracuse. I know fans of both teams are going back and watching the other shows. What are they saying about my team and vice versa? Now, Jackson, something that surprised me a little bit when I was going through the statistics, given that, Syracuse, statistics-wise, such a pass-heavy team. They're also very good when it comes to time of possession. Tops in the ACC.
Isn't that kind of funny?
It's a quirky thing, right? And honestly, time of possession for the teams that have kept games close with Miami and to Georgia Tech, who beat Miami, who had 10 extra minutes of possession compared to the Hurricanes, that's really been a key for opposing teams because the idea is the fewer possessions you give to Cam Ward, the better your chances are at victory. So time of possession to me is a big one, and I know that's something that Fran Brown has been preaching to his team this week.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Donno. Aren't Syracuse and Miami the top two teams in the conference in time of possession?
They are.
So they both control the clock at an incredibly high level. And obviously, you want to control the clock. The reason why Syracuse is able to do it despite being such a pass-heavy team is because while they can push the ball down the field, that is not their bread and butter. If you go look at Cam Ward and Kyle McCord's statistics this season, there's like one category that really separates the two of them. And it's not interceptions, okay? Because Kyle McCord's is inflated from one game against Pitt where he threw 5 of them, okay? It's not that one. It's yards per attempt.
Yeah.
Cam Ward's yards per attempt, I believe, is like 2 yards higher than Kyle McCord's because the two run completely different offenses. Miami, they're going to stretch the ball down the field. And they're quite good at it, guys. They can do it at a high level. There's a reason why they're a top 10 team in the country and on the verge of the college football playoff. With Syracuse, it's more of like very methodical. It's going to be a 10-play, 75-yard drive. We're going to throw to a bubble screen to Trevor Pena. He's going to break a tackle. He's going to get 7 yards. We're going to throw a slant route to Jackson Meeks. We're going to go over the seam to Oronde Gadsden, and we're going to just keep picking up chunk play after chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. And that's why they're able to control the clock, because when they throw, they're not pushing the ball always 50 yards down the field, even though we saw the first play against UConn. That's exactly what they did. But that's why they can control the clock. Donno, to me, the key in this game is not time of possession. It's not that. It's the turnovers.
Yeah.
It's turnovers. Syracuse, in my opinion, they're a 10.5-point underdog right now, right?
Yeah.
That's 2 possessions. So that means if you want to win this game, just by point spread alone, you're going to have to win the turnover margin by 2. That's what you got to do. If you win the turnover margin by 2 and you convert those into touchdowns, that's potentially a 28-point swing because both teams are going to score. So it comes down to, can you take care of the football? Kyle McCord, can you have your best game of the season? Can you have one of those games where we're not scratching our head about your decision-making at times? where it's almost like the Georgia Tech, where he made every throw flawless, doesn't put the ball in harm's way at all. And for Miami, it's for Cam Ward. Hey, can you not be a superhero at times? You don't have to be. I broke down a play on the podcast that he had against Georgia Tech, and Miami fans obviously know the play very well. It was that second down play, gets the strip sack. Dude, just take the open route. Just take what the defense gives you. Because I don't think he's going to have to do too much in order for Miami to win.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense in that Miami needs to make sure that Ward is not making the crazy Superman throws, unless, if Miami's down 2 or 3 scores late, you got to take more chances. That's a given. And sometimes Ward thrives in those situations, but assuming the game is close, if it's within a score or Miami's ahead, I think Miami needs to lean a lot on the running game. I think that's something very important because Miami now has really 3 running backs who are threats to punish any defense, with Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher, who are the guys who get the most workload. Those are your power backs. And freshman running back Jordan Lyle has really emerged as a weapon in recent weeks. And so, Miami theoretically has the tools to wear down any defense, Syracuse included. So I don't want them to go away from the running game unless you absolutely have to, which is a situation where you're down, say, multiple scores in the fourth quarter. What about key matchups for you, Jackson? What do you look at from a Syracuse point of view that are the matchups on the field that could decide this game?
The D-line of Miami versus the offensive line of Syracuse. Now, Donno, the lines are the Achilles heel of this Orange team. That's where they're kind of weak. There's a reason why they don't run for a ton of yards per carry. Now, they get away with it passing-wise because they're such a quick passing team. So they don't ask their line to do a whole lot much in the passing game. So can Miami's pass rush get there in time? Can a guy like Reuben Bain just completely take over? Because if he does that, if he can get in the backfield and just live in Kyle McCord's face all night, or all day, I should say, I don't think Syracuse is going to be able to hang with Miami. I don't. But if just the offensive line of Syracuse can just hold up a little bit, give Kyle McCord enough time, maybe open up enough of a crease for LaQuint Allen, well, then we can start talking about, hey, maybe there's an outside chance of an upset here. That's the key matchup that I look at and say, hey, if Syracuse wants any chance of winning this game, I'm not saying they have to quote unquote win the battle of the trenches. They just can't lose it to the point where it's like Pitt, like a month ago, where it's just a disaster from the start.
Yeah, I obviously I agree with that. So I'll look at the other line of scrimmage, and that's Miami's offensive line against Syracuse's defensive front, because everything that I talked about and preached about the Hurricanes really needing to get the running game going, because, Miami would like to win the time of possession in this one, as they usually do. Bottom line is, Miami is going up against a rushing defense of Syracuse that statistically is 79th in the country. That's below average. They give up about 153 yards per game. Miami gains about 180 yards per game on the ground. So I think that is super important. Also, offensive line protecting Cam Ward. Now, Cam, obviously, much different play style than Kyle McCord, where, Ward doesn't always mind when the pocket breaks down. He can improvise and do some things, but as just about any quarterback in the world he's better when the pocket is clean and he doesn't have to bail on the pocket. So Miami's offensive line, which has been, very good overall this season, has an important task this coming weekend. In terms of individuals, we could talk a little bit more about Oronde Gadsden the second, because that's definitely a guy that scares me from a Miami side. And I feel like he's a player that is going to get his. So, make sure you make sometimes the touchdown saving tackle, especially when you talk about Jackson, a passing game that goes a lot more underneath than Ward in Miami does. Tackling is so important. There have been some games where, like against Wake Forest, against Florida in week 1, where Miami tackles so well, they never allow the extra yard. Then there's other games like the Georgia Tech game or the Cal game when they can't seem to get out of their own way, the Virginia Tech game where Miami really struggled to tackle. So I think, when there's going to be a lot of stuff thrown underneath and you're going to be trying to gain those yak, tackling for Miami is incredibly important. So are we going to get good Kiko Maui-Noa, or are we going to get not so good Kiko Maui-Noa in the linebacking core? Those are some of the questions I look at matchups wise, and individually. Yeah, Oronde Gadsden is a guy who worries me.
I think Elijah Arroyo worries me because I don't know if Syracuse yet has gone up against an elite tight end yet this season. I might be wrong on it. I might be totally misreading it and just completely leaving off like an opponent, but I don't know if they have. Or at least not to the level of Elijah Arroyo. And I saw someone comment on one of my podcasts, well, good thing Syracuse goes up against an elite tight end in practice every day. Well, that's cool and all.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do it in a game?
Right.
And also, like, I don't see how Oronde does in practice.
Right.
But
He might boss it in practice.
I'm sure he does
every day.
quite well in practice, don't you think?
Yeah.
I'm sure he does. Like the receivers for Miami are going to get open. They're going to get open, okay? It's going to happen. I think the receivers for Syracuse are also going to get open at times. Fine. But we got two elite tight ends here. How do they control the middle of the field? Can Syracuse's linebackers cover a guy like Elijah Arroyo? I'm not sure. So this could be a big Elijah Arroyo game. That's the guy I'm looking at him saying, hey, I don't know about that guy. I don't know about that matchup. I don't know how our linebackers are going to be able to hold up against him. Like Xavier Restrepo, that's a free space. He's going to get open. I'm fine with that. It's going to happen. Other guys like George and everyone, they're going to get open. Donno, they're fine. They're really good. But I don't know if our linebackers are going to be able to cover a guy like Elijah Arroyo. I hope I'm wrong, though. I sincerely hope I'm wrong.
Well, a couple things I would consider here based on what we've both been saying. A shootout is very possible. And I agree with what you say about Arroyo and about OG, because I think this is going to be one of the best tight end matchups you could possibly see in the country between Oronde Gadsden II and Elijah Arroyo. Coming up next, it's prediction time. Jackson and I will step into the hot seat. We'll tell you how this game is going to end. You don't even have to watch the game because we're going to tell you how it's going to finish right here on this brand new Locked On crossover. You guys want to keep it locked. We're always keeping it locked to FanDuel. My friends, this is where you get the action. It's America's #1 sports book for a reason. And yeah, if you're a Locked On Syracuse fan and you want to pound the Orange plus 10.5, or you're a Miami fan, you think this is going to be a dominant win, you look at Miami minus 10.5 in this matchup. You can get all the action at FanDuel and get ready to tackle all the NFL action with America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I hope everyone had an awesome Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for making this Locked On crossover. We're on Locked On Canes. We're on Locked On Syracuse. Thank you for making us your first listen and your first watch. Jackson, were you like me? Did you eat way too much on Thanksgiving? I had to upsize my pants, and I'm bursting through everything. It's bad, man.
Yeah, I ate a lot. My mom, for the very first time, she cooked a special type of stuffing. It was a sausage stuffing, and I'm not even a stuffing fan. I don't like it. But the sausage changed everything. I had a ton of green bean casserole as well. I didn't even have turkey. I had a ton of ham because I don't love turkey. I think it's
I don't either.
Yeah, I think it's mediocre. We
Yeah.
celebrate Thanksgiving, but why do we celebrate sometimes with the most mediocre food in the world? Like we pick turkey. Now, having said that, Donno, here's the thing. I hope that Syracuse, they kept it light on Thanksgiving. They didn't enjoy it. I hope they kept it light, though. They kept it lean. They were all cool. But for Miami, I saw a lot of their players. I hosted them for a party, and we were just giving them all the food in the world. We're giving them everything. Take it. It's all yours. You can have all the sausage stuffing in the world. It's yours. Elijah Arroyo, Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, all those. Reuben Bain, how about you? Come on down here. We're going to give you all the. I hope Miami got extra fat and happy. That's all I'm going to say. See, that was the joke I told you I was going to make before recording this.
Well, that's a scoop right there. If we see Miami coming out looking sluggish, we know exactly why.
They were at the Holzer household and they just ate too much turkey. They had too much sausage stuffing and everything like that,
Oh my God! All right, so I'll let you go first if you want to make a prediction. Is the spoiler going to happen on Saturday? What's your final score and how do we get there?
This game is giving me a lot of 2020 SEC Championship vibes. Now, I know the SEC, we frown upon it because we're in the ACC. But the reason why I bring up that game, it was Alabama versus Florida. And it was two high-powered offenses. And I watched that game with someone who was at Florida at the time. He's now a Florida alum. And we were talking a lot before the game. And it was like, it's going to come down to how many stops the other team makes, because neither defense is really going to be able to hang up. Having said that, I think Miami's defense is just a little bit better. I think they're going to be a little bit more buttoned up. I don't think they're going to take Syracuse lightly at all. If anything happens, they might be nervous of the moment, but I don't think they're sitting here saying, we're going to underestimate Syracuse. I think they know that Syracuse is a pretty good team and that they can win. I think Miami's going to win. And I hope I'm wrong. I got 45-35 Canes.
That's so close to mine. That is so close to my pick. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that really this one's going to come down to who makes the extra stop or two, and I think it's also one of those things that could come into effect. And I think I feel like I see this more the last couple of years. You know, the team that has the last possession of the second quarter, if they also receive that third quarter kickoff, those two moments are so important. You know, I'm sure Syracuse does the same. Miami always loves to defer if they win that coin toss, but I'm going 41-35 Miami. So I'm going to go with a slightly closer margin of victory. We both have Syracuse covering the spread. You know, I think this could be one of those games where, you know, if Miami does, you know, get a little separation, it'll be in the fourth quarter. I think that's when you're really going to lean on your big running backs and your diverse running game, having three different guys who can pound the rock. But I think it's going to be a close game, and I think both Kyle McCord and Cam Ward are going to have their moments. And you know, we will see. We will see if Miami gets it over the finish line and they punch their ticket to face SMU in the ACC Championship game. Jackson Holzer, awesome job. Let everyone know. I mean, for the Locked On Canes viewers and listeners, let them know where they can find Locked On Syracuse.
Well, all you got to do, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, but specifically, just all you got to do, search up Locked On Syracuse. You'll find it right there. My Twitter handle for my account personally is at @LO_Syracuse. I'll be giving up updates throughout the game. I'll probably just be reacting, and hopefully I'll be cheering, right? Hopefully, right? I sincerely hope Syracuse wins this game. I really do. I just don't know if they will be able to do it.
We will see. We'll see. It's one of these most Miami Hurricanes games involve drama. So we'll see how much drama ensues. And yeah, you guys, for the Locked On Syracuse listeners, you can find me at Locked On Canes on X and on all the social media platforms. And of course, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Just search for Locked On Canes. And thank you everyone so much for making this crossover episode your first listen and your first watch today. Miami versus Syracuse, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. We'll talk to you again next time right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.